Hi, it's Rich Tehrani here. We're at CTIA 2010 in Las Vegas. Thanks for tuning in and watching our program. Today we're going to be speaking with David McCarley, who is the Executive Director of Service Performance and Device Evaluation of Verizon Wireless. David, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Rich.
So tell me a little bit about your title and what that is that you do at the company.
Well, it's a long title.
Well, you obviously you're in charge of a lot of very important things,
Yes.
Device evaluation, service performance. These are things that affect a lot of people, so tell us.
Sure. Again, thanks for having me over. I'm responsible for our device approval, all the new devices that come in for Verizon Wireless, my team. We have a laboratory in New Jersey, and we will bring all those devices through for approval. I also oversee the service assurance teams. As you may recall, we have 100 vehicles scattered across the United States, and we will drive about 1 million miles this year and make a whole bunch of calls and data calls, and we're responsible for making sure that the reliability statement is there for everybody.
So in terms of this show and some of the announcements you're making, what are some of the things that are new?
Obviously, top on the list would be our 4G LTE deployment announcements. We're gonna get out to 25 to 30 markets this year. Roughly a third of the U.S. population by the end of this year. So clearly that's top of the list.
You know, Norwalk, Connecticut is screaming for LTE. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's a very important.
We will get there and you will be the first to know.
We'll be the first to write about it, I'm sure.
There you go. We'll make sure of that.
So for the viewers that don't know, that's where TMC's headquarters is.
There you go.
So yeah, 4G is important. This is going to be a big year for 4G, right? So,
absolutely.
So what are customers saying?
Well, I think obviously there's a lot of excitement. Both we're hearing from customers, but more importantly, we've got a great lineup of infrastructure providers doing a wonderful job getting the system ready. And we've got tremendous excitement in the ecosystem. The OEMs and the chip manufacturers behind the scenes that have a great deal of work to do to get these new and exciting, and in many cases, non-traditional devices ready to come to market.
So we can expect more interesting devices then. That's the implication here.
Well, absolutely. By the end of this year, you will see a solid slate of LTE devices coming out of Verizon Wireless. And as I said, you know, in the device approval process, you know, people knock at the door, we open, they hand us a device, and off we go to test it. So we're pretty excited about the momentum that we see and the energy that we see. We really believe that you're going to see a lot of devices coming down the line very quickly. So
in terms of network congestion, your network's been pretty solid for the years that I've been testing it, and I've been on it for many years, and it's always done well for me. I'm curious how you're dealing with the massive amount of data increases. Obviously, smartphones are just consuming more and more video.
Yes.
And other streaming radio, for example. Something I can't live without streaming radio anymore.
There you go.
How are you dealing with all that?
Well, you know, you really have to back up and think about how we've run the network for years. I appreciate something you said as you led off your question. The reliability that you feel has been there for many years. That's not by accident, that's by design. So I think you have to look at it in the context that Verizon Wireless has committed itself to quality and establishing what the needs are well in advance, planning, and getting those needs put in place. We committed to LTE years ago, and at that point in time, we recognized that this was the year we needed to bring it online. We're managing our capacity just fine, and I feel we're in a very good spot.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just curious what happens if we pass a tipping point of data. For example, do you have any insight on the upcoming potential explosion in the tablet market? There are going to be all sorts of tablets coming out in the next, let's say, 6 to 18 months. HP Slate, there's an iPad,
sure.
There's e-readers from a number of companies, some are Android-based, etc. If that market takes off, and we expect all of these devices to be enabled with cellular modems, what happens to the networks? I mean, there's going to be an explosion of
absolutely, and
data.
I think we're obviously seeing a lot of that uptick already. And we're planning for it. So I think when you look at the netbooks and the MiFis and the proliferation of data devices and the expansion of data usage that we see today, whether you consider it a tipping point or just a long uphill climb, we're already on that road, and we're finding that it is possible to manage through that. And you do that by managing the network day to day, month to month, and year by year with a very long-sighted, a distance focus, not just focusing on the short term, but understanding what the strategic needs are. You touched on, the explosion of new types of devices. What I would counter and say is that we're already seeing a lot of that explosion already, and we're able to look at the data that they're generating and build off of that and learn from it so that hopefully we don't get blindsided.
I'm about 99% sure that within a few years the devices are going to have cameras, at least one, maybe two cameras on them, and the people that are sharing everything, every personal detail of their lives on social networks will just turn on streaming on their cameras in the morning as they leave their home and just stream everything they do.
Sure. A couple weeks ago I had the opportunity to go up to Boston and do sort of an independent check on the status of one of our trial sites up there. And I can tell you, with the performance of the LTE network that I personally witnessed, as those applications and those devices are LTE enabled, we're going to be in a very good place to accommodate that. As you mentioned, there's a lot of different applications that are gaining traction in the marketplace. A lot of personal networking, and the beauty of those applications are not only on the personal side that allows you to enrich your life, but on the network side, those are short, choppy, transaction-oriented software demands that, quite frankly, our EVDO network is ideally suited to host right now, and LTE is even more efficient. So I don't want to say it's not a problem. It only becomes a problem if you fall behind and you don't pay attention to what's occurring on your network.
Now, one other question I have, I'm curious, how much effort do you have to put into combating things like computers that have been taken over by malware that send out spam without the users knowing, just like the security side of things? Is that at all an issue? Computers becoming zombies or part of a node on a network just flooding the internet with spam?
Those risks are out there whether you're wireless or wireline, and obviously we're working as an entire industry to combat in a common effort those sorts of threats. There are certainly things that we do to protect our network that we feel put us in a good position. People will always try to do things targeted towards the devices, but that's why we partner with the ecosystem to make sure that from the device all the way up to the application layer, that we're doing the best that we can to ensure that those devices have the right defense mechanisms in them.
Excellent. So if we could just wrap up with one final question, what can we expect from Verizon Wireless in the next 3 to 5 years? What exciting things?
Wow. In the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to find Verizon Wireless will have moved through its initial LTE deployment faster than many believe is possible. The red map that you see on TV will be even larger because our 700 meg LTE spectrum is not just more efficient, better propagation characteristics, but is licensed for the entire lower continental United States. So you'll see a bigger footprint. You're going to see a lot of new devices, and I think you're going to see a lot of non-traditional devices showing up in places that a few years ago folks didn't even conceive.
So I promise that was the last question, but now I have another one, so I'm sorry.
By all means.
Actually, it's a two-part. The first is with the 700 megahertz frequency, will we be able to experience better cell coverage inside of buildings, let's say, that have layers of concrete because of the ability for 700 megahertz to propagate through concrete and steel and things like that?
This is an instance where physics is our friend. Yes, you will find that the 700 meg frequencies will have a better propagation characteristic, which again goes back to why strategically we felt it was the right move to go for that spectrum at that time.
And then the second part of the question is, I've been told that now when you've got the frequencies that are able to propagate so far, you now have the potential for more interference from different cell sites potentially interfering with one another. Is that a challenge at all?
You have the potential, but our job as a network engineering team is to learn from over 20 years of experience in dealing with CDMA, a very power a specific technology to make sure that we design this network with that in mind. Put those sites in the right places, configure them properly. It's not to say it will never be an issue, but it is a manageable issue, and quite frankly, it's one that we can take off the table in most cases by doing a smart design up front.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much for being on the program today. It was wonderful to speak with you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay.